Hello, hello, and welcome to another live. It's good to be back. I have had a busy weekend because it's the Polyglot Gathering, and I spoke at the gathering yesterday. So I was kind of playing catch up with my topics for discussion this week. So I do apologize for only really announcing it a few hours before the live, but I actually felt inspired. I was going to do just a general live today, but I was watching a few things and I came across a video on TikTok, in fact, of all places, that was talking about women and the kinds of extra hoops that they often have to go through in society. And there were quite a few learning experiences for me during that video, sort of talking about the reality of many different areas of society for women that are different to men. And so, yeah, I mean, I actually reposted it because I found it very informative. And so if you follow me on TikTok, feel free to have a look if you want to see what the video is about. I'll see if I can put a link actually in as well, in case any of you want to see it. And you don't follow me, or you can see TikTok, but you don't want to have an account or something. But it got me to thinking about a topic really that's been something that was raised about 10 years ago for the first time, I think. And I'm going to say 10 years ago because it's 10 years ago since we had the first Polyglot conference, and that was in Budapest, and we had the first one in May in 2013. So it's almost a year ago now. Now we're in April. And one of the comments I got was, where's the gender balance on stage? Now, to my mind, it was roughly 50-50 in terms of gender split of presenters. I could be wrong. Clearly, that wasn't the perception. And so I could be wrong. But I want to explain why I didn't even think about that and why it didn't enter my head. And the reason behind it is that I grew up in a United Kingdom that was run by a female Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher at the time, and we had a Queen on the throne. All of my head teachers at school were all women. I grew up with probably the two most important figures in my life were my mum and my nan, and they were very strong, and they did a lot of things to sort of mean that for me, I kind of grew up with this. I had no idea about gender inequality or anything like that, and it certainly wasn't something that really, as a boy and now as a man, I suppose it never really came up until really university, I would say. My best friend as a child as well happened to be a girl. So, and in fact, that best friend, I wanted to be my best man at my wedding because from my point of view, gender shouldn't really matter in terms of your best man, as they say. I took the meaning of the word man to mean all of the humans in my life and on the planet, and not as the gender of a male or the sex male. For me, it didn't really play a role, and it was very clear to me that that was my best friend, and so so that would be my best man. So I kind of came from this I guess kind of strange. I realized afterwards quite strange background in terms of my perception of gender. So I always saw women as the leaders, the strong people, the people in higher positions in my life. And as I say, I got to university, many of my lecturers were women. I studied languages at university, and I looked at the statistics as well today just to check, because it was mainly women, girls studying with me. I was the minority in terms of gender on my language course, I was studying a degree in combined languages, and even with the other languages, the degrees that people were doing, I think it was also mainly women, girls, and boys, men were a minority. So the split that I've seen mentioned is kind of 70-30, 70% women, 30% men. They were the statistics that I saw, and that would kind of correlate fairly well to my experience in that. In fact, probably on my course, it was fewer than 30% men. It was a very specific course. And so women were actually the ones doing extremely well. They were doing really good things with languages. It was so the idea that women not being represented or being seen in this position of power never really entered my head until I may even say not university. It may have even been at the end of university or after. And it was really, yeah, I was kind of sheltered in that way. And as a man, obviously, I wouldn't see it because I didn't know that I kind of had that privilege. Who knew, right? That type of language of talking about these ideas of where you see things and perceive things is a relatively new thing anyway. And it was interesting when I first heard that comment at first conference. I was kind of surprised. I'll be honest, I was very surprised because I never perceived any difference. Over the years, I have noticed that actually, and some of the comments were interesting here because I always open with a very open kind of discussion. What am I going to talk about women and language learning? And I think the thing I want to say is that women typically outperform men in language learning, and the statistics again for the end of school exams in the UK were twice as many female students passed their GCSE, which is our sort of 16-year-old end of school exam in the UK, in foreign languages than boys. So there was always, it's always been seen as kind of a subject that's female dominated, and so I kind of accepted that, and that was normal for me. But when I think back over the years of organizing events and conferences, and even when we first started putting videos online, men were there first, and they were doing these things. They were always ready to sort of stand up and talk, and the balance in terms of what I understand from university and school and my life actually is really badly reflected. And I guess at the end of this live, I actually want your input. I want you to reach out to me. I want you to help me with this, because I see this as an ongoing thing to discuss and to make sure we redress these balances. So if the reality and the statistics are right, which as somebody who's been through that system can attest to, that it's a fairly good representation of that, why do we still see applying to speak at events? Like, for example, the events that I put on, it's sometimes a challenge to get women to speak. And I know the expertise are out there, and I know that they're very willing. And the thing it comes down to, I think, is the extra barriers that women have in society to be able to speak publicly on a stage. They are definitely on the receiving end of more comments that are absolutely irrelevant to their knowledge and have no place in what they're talking about or their ability to talk on a topic. They have to deal with way more scrutiny. And I'm going to be very honest, because as somebody who's uploaded videos of presentations, the sort of the veracity of the comments sometimes on women speakers female speakers is actually quite shocking compared to male speakers. And it doesn't always come from just men. It also comes from other women. And so it's unfortunately not just an issue of, women receiving this kind of problem from one corner of society or one gender. It's actually from all genders. And I see that as problematic because it's important that we have women speaking on stage. It's important that we have a good balance as well, not just a tokenistic display of this. The 1 year that we had at the Polyglot conference, we had more, in fact, women speakers than men on stage. And that was something that I worked very hard to make sure we tried to encourage more women to talk. And it's not an easy thing to do because it's recorded and then put online. And we did. The interesting thing that happened during that conference, that was in Ljubljana, was that women said, oh, it's gender balanced, which is interesting because actually there were more women, but they perceived it as a gender balance, the people that spoke to me. The men, actually, surprisingly, were very positive when they commented on it. They said that they liked the gender balance and that they liked seeing more women speakers on stage. And I felt really quite encouraged by that feedback. And I've always been a big fan of when Women in Language started, because it was a space for women within the language learning community to talk online and to do so in an environment that was kind of safer, I guess, is probably the best word, because the talks were not publicly available after the event. It was an opportunity for people to be able to feel that they were taking a calculated risk. And I get it. It's a little bit scary for everyone to go on stage and to have something recorded. And I understand and accept that. But I would have to say that I would still think that it's important for people to have role models at home. I mean, I've picked gender today as this delineation, and the reason I've picked gender is because of the videos that I've seen and because of my own history with thinking very carefully and consciously about this after a history of not really thinking about it. And honestly, I still haven't cracked it. In spite of, even in my adult life, having worked most of my life under women and not with men as my managers or bosses. In fact, the last company I worked for full time was a company that is led by women, and proudly so. And I was very proud to be led by that agency. And so, even with all this experience, and even with the fact that for me it's a very important thing to imbalance, and it's very important for a number of reasons, not just because I think we need to address the balance of what we see in terms of education, of the 70-30 split that we see in education, but to give a voice to people who have got different ideas and different thoughts and different perspectives. As a man, I can't talk about the experiences of anyone except my gender. And even then, I can only talk about very specific experiences of my gender, right? So I couldn't talk, for example, what it's like to be a black man or an Asian man, or even a Mediterranean man, even a Russian man, even a whatever. I can't do it because that's not my lived experience. I can only speak about my own personal lived experience. And as you all know, I'm very much on the individual level. for this reason, in fact, because I don't think that we can glob everyone together in a sort of a way where we expect all people in from a group to behave in a certain way or have a certain perspective. Even with men and women, when we sort of make this sort of 50-50 is probably the easiest division of groups to sort of talk about. When people talk in those terms, I'm not even going into the discussion of different genders. I'm just talking about men and women, right? But that very fundamental one, which I think was probably one of the first ones that people talked about in terms of the right to vote and all that kind of stuff, it still evades me a little bit. And so this is where I genuinely want to ask for your help, and I want you to tell me. And you don't have to tell me in a public comment. You don't have to tell me in any public way. You're very welcome to send me a message, send me an email, and tell me your thoughts. I'm genuinely interested as somebody who organizes events. And this is one thing that saddens me now as I organize an event in Scotland. I reached out to a number of women, and I didn't hear back, and I tried to focus on to get a balance of speakers. I get that sort of, certain sectors of society are going to be harder for me to target in a place like Edinburgh, on a very specific topic about languages. But I did my best, and unfortunately, my best isn't good enough. And I want to acknowledge that my best isn't good enough for doing this. And I want to know concrete ways of how I can maybe improve that. It's at the moment, the way things stand are that there's a majority of men speaking, and whilst inherently these are all individuals in their own right and they all deserve to have their voices heard as well, for an event, I would feel that there should be a reflection of our community as language learners, and that reflection should be at the bare minimum, a 50-50 split, if not actually more women, because our community tends to be more women than men. If it were to be a genuine reflection of our group, and I've only achieved that once in Ljubljana. Now, my way of kind of compensating for this is the events that we've had in between the conference and now in Edinburgh, is to sort of make sure that we have other people speaking the online events. So that's one way I've found to help to redress some of the balance and to make sure the voices are heard. I know that there are lots of very competent people out there who can speak on a number of topics, and I guess one thing I can ask you to do that I'm aware is to help me to figure out how to reach more people, whether that's asking you to help me share calls for papers so that we can get heard by more people and have different points of view. And I think the thing is, and this topic really, you can apply it to other sections of society, not just men and women. You could do this on sort of all sorts of sort of cross sections of society where we want to have diverse voices. Now, I know that there are some people who will think, why is it important to have different voices? And I get it. I understand that kind of you can imagine maybe that, well, any voice is good, and any voice can lead somebody to feel inspired. And I get that too. And sometimes that does work. The only thing is every single individual person's lived experiences they're all different. And whilst one person out there may feel inspired by somebody who doesn't look like them or they don't identify with that person's characteristics or groups or where they see them as belonging in sections of society. Another person may have felt threatened through life and not had exposure to other groups of society and not seen themselves in people speaking as authorities on a topic, not represented on a stage, not on a video. And actually, there's something quite powerful for those individuals to see something of themselves that they can identify as that person. It looks like me, is similar to me, has similar experiences that I can relate to directly. And there's something quite powerful about having that on stage for those people to be able to relate to. It helps to move us all further forward, because when somebody speaks on a topic that is interesting and valid for you, you can draw inspiration from that and learnings from that anyway, regardless of the packaging. When everybody can see at least one or two, or maybe more, hopefully, people who they feel they can identify with on a stage, it makes it easier to kind of understand all of the people on the stage as, oh yeah, they're all different, but they've all got a message for me. There's less of a switch off moment. This is something I can listen to, but it's not something I can emulate. This is something I can listen to, but it's not something I can do myself. This is something I can listen to, but it's not something that empowers me to be in that same position as that person. There's a slight difference there. And I know, particularly, for certain sections of society, that might feel like, oh, well, I've never had a problem with it. If that's how you feel, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about anyone we imagine. It's about concrete individual, the child growing up in Ohio who was raised in a Black community, who happens to enjoy learning languages and wants to learn more. Let's imagine she's just started learning French at school or Spanish, and she heard it and she's curious, so she looks online and she types in, learning Spanish. And all she sees is a sea of white male faces. She could very well take that and say, yeah, I can do that too. But equally, she could say, more white male faces. Where do I belong in this sea? And this is the key difference. And this is why true diversity, even though I am fundamentally, I believe in the diversity on the individual basis, because we're all very different individually, it's important that we have the groups that people identify with represented, whether that's based on gender, on race, on disability, on religion, on sexuality, on, you name it, anything and anything. It just helps. If it helps even one child at school, say, look at someone like me. And I saw a video once as well where I know the Little Mermaid having Black Ariel was like a big thing in the US. And I saw a video of young Black kids, Black girls, reacting to it. And the look of face, oh, she's like me. She's like me. She's Black. And just the joy on their faces, and everything's possible. Yeah, so it's important to me. And sorry, it's really important to me. So I hope that you can help to if I can give my platform to make this possible, then I'm very happy. So, okay, that's what I wanted to talk about today. And I know that some of you recognize this, and I really, yeah, I just wanted you to know that this is super important to me, and I really hope that we can do something together. So yeah, let's get the representation, because the women, the girls, women, I mean, we were young, right? I always don't know what to say, women, girls, because we were boys, men, I don't know. But at university, my fellow students on my degree, women, were so talented and so good, so good, so good. And I marvel at kind of, as I say, the video that I saw on TikTok today. Oh my word, like it just made me think. These discussions, we think they're over, right? And they're not. They're not over. And this is from someone who didn't even realize there was a discussion to be had, because I lived such a sheltered life. And so, yeah, I mean, thank you for listening, first of all. And I know that this isn't everyone's cup of tea as a topic, and I know it's not specifically just language learning related. And I know that a lot of you come for that. And but I hope that those of you who do watch this and do care, and care about people learning languages, which is ultimately, I mean, look, that's my drive, right? My drive is that I make content to hopefully inspire people to answer questions about language learning, and to give a platform to people to talk about different topics language related. And language is cut through every section of our society. Everything is language is for me everything. I mean, it's super important, and just making sure that the language domain is fairly represented, and we definitely need to make sure we're all visible, we all count. And this is the thing, right? Is when we don't all count until we all count, until we're all seen. We don't all count until we are all seen. So even reach out to me if you're kind of scared and you thought about talking at an event, but you didn't because something held you back. I mean, I'm even very happy to spend time with people who want that, to just go through and talk through things, and to see what we can do. And I think we need to support each other in this kind of thing to make sure that this works. So thank you for listening so much. Thank you. I'm going to have a look at the questions. I'll start on YouTube. Okay, good evening, Richard. I'm looking forward to what I have to say on this topic. Thank you, Sophia, my idol. Thank you. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, Richard. Thank you very much. Makes me think of the people who got inspired by Moses McCormick. I think people don't look or sound like a typical internet polyglot do much for inclusivity. Yeah, Moses did a great job for this. This was really important. He got a lot of hate. He got an awful lot of hate and racist comments, and it was horrible to see. But he carried on. In spite of it, he carried on, and I think he inspired a lot of people, and not just Black Americans. I think he inspired a lot of other people as well, because the appeal isn't just from one section of society, but you need all sections of society to be represented, or as many as possible, at least. I know there are so many, but as many as possible to be represented so that you can inspire others. And Sophie, it's such an important topic. Thank you for how much you care about moving the conversation and opening things up for more people. This is something we all need. Thank you, Sophia. Yeah, I agree. It's something I think about a lot as a trans woman. I don't even know if I have the courage to put my voice out there, but the idea that it might help someone else that way at least drives me to. Sophia, if you ever want to talk, be visible, be the best I can be, and be myself, you can. Of course you can. Really important. Yeah, I mean, if you feel that you'd like to, I'm very, very happy to talk to you. Oh, thank you. I can't read that. I'll cry if I read this comment. Thank you. It's very nice. Don't be too nice to me because I'm soft. Okay. Thanks for sharing your heart. You're very welcome. I'm glad it makes sense to you. Thank you. I'm looking at an Instagram chat, sorry, as well. I agree. More women in the language community online too. There absolutely are. This is why it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it really doesn't. It needs to. We need to do something to redress the balance. It has to. It has to make sense, right? And how do we do it? This is the. I mean, this is why I can kind of genuinely ask. I'm going to give you an example, right? I was going to share this example during my chat, but then I kind of lost the plot. But I want to share an example. So I said, you know, these videos from women sometimes are given harsher critique than men. I honestly think that that's the case, and I don't have statistics to back this up, but it's from looking at comments and seeing how things go over years. Okay, so it's very much heartfelt, and I found it very difficult. And there have been videos that I've had up on YouTube for the Polyglot Conference that I honestly, the hate for me at some stages just got so much that I wanted to bring it down. And my kind of view on this kind of hate is also, it's so that almost people will say this isn't cool, and that the community will gather around, and it doesn't always happen. I don't particularly think that conflict is the best way forward. I think that discussion and understanding is way more valuable. And so even if somebody has quite a diametrically opposed opinion to my own, I prefer to keep the channels of communication open to understand where they're coming from and why. And I hope that other people will do the same. So yeah, with the this video, I did think about taking it down, and one of the issues was on one of the videos, actually, not the same one, another one, was the amount of and to the point that I am now spending hours on a video that was recorded. I'm not going to give names or specifics, and had a lot of ums and ers. And I am now spending hours just editing it so that this person just has their message heard, and that the focus is on the message. And I find that incredibly sad. And I know that had that been a man speaking, I probably wouldn't have gone to the trouble. I'd have just left it up. And the fact that I'm aware of that and that I'm thinking of that makes me very sad. It's not right that that's the case. It shouldn't matter. It should be the content, and it shouldn't be anything to do with the kind of things that I've read before and the critique. We should be moving past this. But I do honestly feel that the message would be lost because of stupid comments. And I just hope that this effort is worth it, for the message to be heard by as many people as possible. yeah, that's kind of another one of the things that's kind of spurred me to do this. And I feel very weird editing out ums and ers. I don't normally do it. It's not something, as I say, it's not something I would do for a man, but I have to be conscious of it because of gender. It's absolutely crazy that I have to be conscious of something like that for gender. But it's also, I remember once a cartoon that I saw years ago, and it was really interesting because it was kind of different animals, and they were going to be in a race or something like that. And one idea was that they were supposed to all have the same starting position. And the fact is that we don't all have the same starting position. We all have different starting positions because some of us have a sort of a head start for certain things, and it's based on many different criteria. And so that image stuck in my head of, to make this fair, you have to make it fair. I know that sounds really weird when I've said it out loud, but I hope you get what I mean. To make things fair, you have to make things fair. Yeah, it makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to you too. We love your videos. Oh, thank you for the nice comments on Instagram. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. So for what it's worth, I think you're spot on with this. Thank you. Oh, would it be okay if I reach out to you sometime for some more thoughts about this? I think I need a bit more time to gather what I want to say. Exactly, Sophia. Of course you can. Of course you can. Whenever you're ready. For what it's worth, I think you're spot on with this. And the problem will never ever go away if we just pretend it isn't there. Absolutely. And if we we get to a point where it feels like it has gone away, and I think we have had that as a society, I think sometimes some elements of society will feel that because they don't perceive it anymore. And the thing is that if we're not aware of what's been, we can't be ready for what can be as well. I know what you mean. It won't become fair unless we make it that way. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Fair. I mean, fair is fair doesn't mean the same. I mean, slightly other kind of, I guess, another analogy I would put against it is, you know, the sort of in some people will often talk about who's your favorite person, or who's your favorite friend, or your best friend, or who's your favorite kid, or who's your favorite whatever, your favorite grandparent, favorite parent. Who do you love the most? These are like really, for me, shocking questions people ask. And for me, that is like trying to choose between an apple and an orange. If I like both, but at different times, I can't choose between certain things, right? And pretending that the two things are the same, and pretending that you would do the same things for or with, like for example, with apples and oranges, you don't use them in the same way, and therefore people come in different packages and come with different things that they have in their lives and things that they identify with, and so they don't come equal either. It's not equality, it's different, and that's what diversity is about, right? And the lived experiences and why they're important, and why it's important to have even the same talk or a similar talk by different people, is the lived experiences and perceptions of a different person. Yeah. I'm just thinking, one of the things when I was at university, one of the things that I remember as a conversation, I was in the student halls, and there was a master's student who was staying on for the summer, and I'd gone back a bit early to university, and we were talking about travel, and she said to me that she had been studying in Australia. And I said, "Oh, I love Australia. I went there I went there and it was amazing, and everyone was so friendly and nice." And she looked at me in the eyes and just said, "Yeah, because you're white and you're a man." And I was like, "Huh?" And I'd never heard it. That was the first time anyone had said anything like that to me ever. And um, I've actually since told that story to friends in Australia, and they said, I get it." I mean, the Australia then, back then, I'm talking about like the 90s, right? So, I mean, Australia's changed a lot since then. And I know it's changed in many ways from my first visit to my second visit. And um, I'm sure it's changed in many other ways too that I can't perceive. And I'm not going to pretend I know everything about Australia. But the reaction struck me. And that moment, I think, was the moment that I realized how important your packaging was. And also, when we were going abroad, the girls were took to one were taken to one side, um, to be warned about the behavior of men, particularly if they were blonde, going from the UK, because obviously the UK has a lot of blonde people as well. And they said, "You're not going to have the same experience of the year abroad as your male counterparts." And particularly the ones that were going to Italy and France had this talk as you will get wolf whistles, you will get lots of attention that you don't want necessarily. And I remember my friends telling me about this, like my blonde female students friends who were on the same course, and I was absolutely shocked to the core. I couldn't imagine that at all. For me, that was like absolutely unthinkable. And then when we went there, a few female students said to me, "I have a newfound respect for British men," and it was super shocking to me. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend that the UK is a perfect place. It's absolutely not. But yeah, it's these kinds of experiences that have stood out to me in my life since, as I say, I had this awakening at like university age, and it's these stories that kind of got me to where I am, I guess, with my thoughts and why I know it's important and why we need to think about these things. Yeah. Let me see. It makes me think of how much I get turned away when someone is just giving language advice and they casually drop that you should go and live in the country and spend a few months there or something like that. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, sometimes language advice it can be a little bit, from one perspective, and sometimes that just doesn't work for another person. This is one of the reasons why I talk about the individuality, and I talk about during the language learn therapy sessions that I run. Actually, it's a lovely diverse group of people from different countries, and we all have different lived experiences, and we share and we learn from each other. And what I really like is that we're at a point where everyone says, "Oh, I loved listening to those last couple of people speaking because it really applies to my life as well, and I can see how actually I sort of tweak, and it makes sense to me too." And I just really love that. And it doesn't matter about the gender, race, age, all sort of manner of differences. Um, I love that like on an individual level, we can be inspired and get things right. It's just when we see things as a group, I think it gets scary. If you just see a group of white men talking about something, I can totally understand why that would be threatening, or feel like I don't fit. You know, I get that. I do. I absolutely get that. So that's what we need to address. We need to get that fixed, and keep getting it fixed, not just once, over and over again. Like, gosh, yeah, it would be nice if I had the privilege to go somewhere Yeah, exactly. So yeah, going abroad and just disappearing off for months at a time or a year at a time is not always an option. Absolutely. Hi, Richard. When do you listen to news for Spanish language, Russian? So I follow. Interesting question. Slight detour, but I'm very happy to take other questions as well. I think we spoke a lot, and I hope that those of you who have listened and it's important to you too, you'll reach out to me about this topic. I hope I've labelled it in a way that it will attract attention, and if it hasn't, and you know somebody who is also wants to advocate for a diverse range of people as examples in the language learning community, please do reach out, put me in touch. I'd be very happy. In terms of my language learning and my sort of listening to news, so I follow a lot of things on social media, and I guess so I kind of come across it organically, and so I'll listen to different things from different places. At the moment, I'm kind of really enjoying Instagram for joke videos in French. Particularly, I get them in French, Spanish, and Italian, and I share them with some people, and sometimes in German too. I've got more recently, but those three I get lots in. Most of my reels on Instagram are that. That's basically it. On TikTok, I also get a number of feeds in different languages as well, because I have a very multilingual diet when it comes to my social media. Twitter's fairly English, but the other ones, Facebook is, there's some multilingual to it. It's quite a lot of English. But the other two, Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, are very much multilingual for me. And English would be the minority language on Instagram at the moment for me, for sure. My content is mainly in French, Spanish, and Italian, and some German, and the odd bit of Dutch, and maybe some other languages, but mainly those. But yeah, I tend to get things from that, and a lot of news comes up on that as well. Let me see if there's any other questions I can answer here. Remember to like and follow. I keep forgetting to say that, and I should. I know I kind of say it as a kind of it's very half-hearted, but it is important for the algorithm, and it's important if, for example, I actually do care about this topic, and if more people can see it, then I really appreciate the thumbs up. If you can, that would be great. I mean, I've got more people watching YouTube than likes, so if you haven't liked the video, please do, or at least consider doing it. And if you're not following me, please do as well. Let me see. Respect to you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. So, yeah, I mean, I know that I kind of talk a lot about language learning and language topics, and these are things that I follow too. So people often ask me, what kind of things other things I'm interested in, and I love philosophical debate. I love hearing about people's beliefs, people's opinions on politics and different things. Not the kind of, I guess, sort of guttural, sort of argumentative politics, but genuine reasoning. Like I prefer a reasoned argument on politics. So I really enjoy the discussion, following discussion on diversity. For me, it's a real passion, and something that I believe very firmly in. And so, yeah, it's a topic that I talk about a lot and listen to a lot. Actually, do more listening about it than talking about it, because I'm not the expert, and certainly, yeah, the topic has plenty of adequately well-versed and eloquent speakers to be able to talk about the things that are important. And it certainly doesn't need me to add to that mix, which is why the only way that I think that it's important for me to add to that mix is to offer a platform that I have with the conference and with the language event, to be able to at least entice more people to have their voices heard by different audiences. I'm not going to say more people, because sometimes these people have way more followers than little old me, or even the conference and the language event. But I think it's important that a diverse range of people hears a diverse range of voices, and that's the key. Because if we only hear the same voices in a kind of an echo chamber, that's all it becomes, is this echo chamber of we all agree with each other, and we don't have anything from outside, and we don't speak to anyone from outside, because people almost tag with left, right, conservative, liberal, whatever. And to be honest with you, as far as I'm concerned, diversity should matter to everyone, in the sense that it doesn't matter what other beliefs or feelings or views or anything else you have. The only way to hear a different aspect and to grow in terms of awareness of how things are understood, are perceived, and an understanding of humankind and of our fellow human is to hear a range of voices. That's the only that's the only way, really. And that can be, this is one of the reasons why I also champion indigenous, endangered, and vulnerable languages and minoritized linguistic groups, and that's why it's one of my passions, because it's super important to know. History is often, as they say, history is written by the victors, and there are usually at least 3, if not many, many more versions of the same story. Yeah. Hey, Richard, what could be the only secret to write and speak a language? What's this? Nicely, actually, I think writing. Spreche authentic German. Speaking authentic German. The only real secrets, unfortunately, through language learning are repetition and getting as much exposure to the language as possible. So that can be in the form of comprehensible input, with also dedicated output. So practicing what you want to say or write, and actually using the language, being exposed to it, and doing that in a purposeful way, and doing it regularly. If your goal is to speak a language, then that's the only real way. There isn't you could have different exercises that you enjoy. So there are different methodologies, from sort of a translation style methodology of doing translations, like Assimil. Luca Lampariello very much supports this way of learning. It could be shadowing technique that Alexandra Arguelles talks about. It could be studying the grammar and reading literature, like Judith Meyer, for example. It could be a communicative approach to language learning, like Lydia Machova. It could be journaling and writing things down, and practicing, and just going out there and making mistakes and not caring, and doing things, and sort of like many, many other people. I mean, Lindy Buertas has got many videos that she has left on her YouTube channel, which is still active, but also she's archived a number of these things on other social media channels. And so there are many, many people, I think, that we can follow for this. One of my kind of underrepresented, I suppose I don't hear from her enough, is Erin Morgan. And yeah, Erin Morgan's super cool. In fact, I had a podcast interview just the other day, and they asked me to nominate another speaker, and my nomination was for Erin Morgan, because I don't hear enough from her, and want to, because I know she's got a lot of really cool knowledge, and I want to hear it. So it's kind of a bit selfish from my point of view, because her field of expertise actually overlaps with my recent half of my life's work in the Balkan region, right? So she specializes a lot in sort of Arabic and Persian and those kinds of languages, and they have had a huge impact on the Balkan languages. So for me, yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah. Okay. So are there any other questions? Feel free to ask anything you want to. You can always write in the comments afterwards, and I'll do my best to get to them. Remember to come to me if you've got any thoughts, ideas, comments. I'm very, very happy to be available to move this forward. I want this to be a meaningful thing. I don't want this to be a thing that we just do. So even if you're seeing a recording of this, like in 5 months' time, it doesn't matter, or even a year's time, just let me know. Because as I say, this is not a thing that just stops today, or it's not a thing that I say and you go, oh, isn't he nice for saying that? No, it's important, and it's an important thing that will continue for a while longer yet. So yeah, please do reach out, and yeah, I will be back again next week, I hope. I should be back next week. If I'm not, I will let you know, but I will. I've got to go on the road, and I'm not sure exactly what time, but I will let you know. And hopefully I'll be back next week. Otherwise, I will do something possibly on the Monday evening, as I did with the Day of Multilingualism. I may do something like that instead. Yeah, thank you so much, Sophia, for being here, and I look forward to hearing from you. Please do reach out. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a good evening. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Enjoy your week, whatever you're doing, and happy language learning. And I will look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.